Hi, I'm C.C. Péan, and this is Reclaiming Your Health.
Hello and welcome to Reclaiming Your Health. Thank you so much for joining me again this week. My name is Cynthia, or C.C. Péan, and I am your host to Reclaiming Your Health. And I so look forward to meeting with you all every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Today, we are making a dish that I think is absolutely delicious. My husband is a pasta lover, and if we could eat pasta 2 or 3 times a week, we would, but we don't because we know it's not the best thing to have frequently. But this is one of those dishes that while it's pasta, we've given it a healthy twist, and it is 100% vegan, and it's 100% delicious. Let me apologize at first because I neglected to put 2 ingredients on the list. One of them is frozen chopped spinach. This is going to go into our filling for our manicotti, and also lemon juice. The reason that we're using lemon juice is because we want to give our tofu mixture that is substituting for ricotta kind of a tanginess to it, and so that's where the little squirt of lemon juice is going to come in. And then our spinach is actually going to be piped in to the manicotti along with, it's going to be mixed into that ricotta filling. So my apologies for not including that. This is a fairly simple dish. Let's talk about it. So we are going to make a ricotta cheese from firm tofu. We're going to use a little bit of the afkave tofu scramble magic, and the reason we're doing that is we want to give it a little bit of an eggy flavor. Now, oftentimes when this dish is made traditionally, the ricotta is mixed with an egg. So that's why we're going to use just a little bit of the afkave tofu scramble magic. Also going in that mixture, we're going to have some nice hearty crimini mushrooms. We have some sun-dried tomatoes, which add a delicious flavor to it. We have some Italian dressing that's going to go into that, some fresh basil, and then our sauce that we're going to make, which is the habesha, the creamy habesha, featuring afkave's Habesha Spice, is going to be chopped tomato, tomato paste, a little bit of the afkave Habesha Spice, and some plant-based half and half. Let me make sure that's everything. That is everything. Now, on my page a few weeks ago, I featured a product from a friend of mine. His name is Ian Martin, and he has a company called Misha's Kind Foods. And Misha's has these delicious cheese spreads. Well, one of the things they also have is a vegan ricotta. So I'm going to actually add a little bit of this to my mixture, but check them out. Misha's, M-I-S-H-A-S, Misha's Kind Foods. They got a $3 million investment from Jay-Z's venture capital fund. So they're doing big things. Black-owned, small business, delicious product. All right, so let's get started because there's a few things going. So I'm going to start my sauce here and then move it off, and we'll just keep going. So this is going to warm up. I'm going to add maybe let's say not even a teaspoon. Let's just do a teaspoon of oil in there. And to that, I have half of an onion that I have chopped and about 3 cloves of garlic. That's going to go right in here. We're working on the sauce first because the sauce needs to really reduce. It needs about 10, 15 minutes to cook and reduce. So we're starting with that. And while that is getting started, I'm going to go ahead and start prepping some other ingredients because the mushrooms and the tomato have to be cut down a little bit. So I'm taking out the stems. Some of you may like the stems. I don't know that there's anything wrong with the stems. I think that we take them out. For me, it's more a thing about uniformity, about even when I'm cutting up my mushrooms, that they're all evenly cut, etc. And I've talked to you all about that, how it's very important. Let's see, move this out the way. How it's very important to cut things evenly because they will cook evenly, and then your end product is going to look wonderful. Okay, I'm just going to put this back in my little bowl. And the chopped spinach is frozen. I thawed it out and just, you kind of, in your hand, squeeze all the water out. That's all you have to do to it, nothing else. How much mushrooms we have here? This is about a half a cup. It's going to equal about a half a cup. This is a great dish that can be prepped, covered up with some saran wrap or aluminum foil. And when your guests are about to walk in the door, you pop it in. By the time they've gotten seated, you know, you've got your 15, 20 minutes in the oven, and it's nice and hot and fresh out the oven. It's definitely something that can be prepared in advance. Actually, all the components of this dish can be prepared in advance and then just assembled. Because one of the things we do is we boil the manicotti for 5 minutes until it's al dente. And then we cool those under cold water to stop it from cooking. And then we set them aside. And we make the mixture that goes inside of it, and we set it aside. We get the sauce going, and we set it aside. So this is really something that can be thrown together at the last minute if you have all the components prepared. So these are my mushrooms. We've got our spinach, and now I'm going to use my sun-dried tomatoes. Now, I love using sun-dried tomatoes because they really do give a nice richness to your dish. There are these different flavor profiles, and I'm sure you've heard the term umami. Well, these sun-dried tomatoes really have a rich umami flavor to them. So the ones I'm using are packed in oil. These are the best ones to use because when you buy the ones that are straight, like out of a freeze-dried package, they stay super chewy. These have a little bit of chew to them, but it's not hard for it to break down in your mouth. So I would suggest you use those that are kept in oil. And also they have beautiful herbs that are used in that whole process. So you've got that umami in it, you've got that, you know, those herbs that are just really deeply in there. Okay, so we're gonna put this back. And our onions are cooking nicely. So let's go ahead and add our 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. And we're just gonna move that about in the pan. I'm gonna add just a little bit of water to help this break down. Okay. Now the reason for cooking your tomato paste for a little bit before you add the chopped tomato, there's a canned flavor that comes off of tomato paste that's been in a can and with the crushed tomatoes. So cooking it a little bit takes that tin flavor So now we're gonna add our crushed tomato. We're gonna mix that through. And this is gonna simmer. Once we get all the ingredients, this is gonna simmer for a good 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, so now we're adding our plant-based half and half. And we are adding our Habesha spice. Now, I like it spicy. Some of you may like it spicy as well. A half tablespoon may do, a full tablespoon may do. I would start out with less and then work my way up. You don't have to use the Habesha spice, but this is my way of bringing in the African diaspora to an Italian dish. And let me tell you, Habesha refers to the Ethiopian and Eritrean cultures. And interestingly enough, Ethiopian spices go very well in Italian dishes. There's a little bit of history there too. We'll get to that some other time, but it's a great combination. Okay, so this is well mixed. And I'm gonna move this to my back burner so we can get started with our next item. Turn that. And now we are going to saute our mushrooms, spinach, tomatoes, because we don't want our mushrooms to be raw when they go into tofu. So this is warming up. Again, we're just going to use about a teaspoon of oil, not a lot. We can even use the spray oil. We've talked about using spray oil because that gets rid of, a lot of fat and calories. So that is warming up. And we're going to add our mushrooms. We're going to add our spinach. And we're going to add our tomatoes. I'm using a spoon because, like I told you, this comes in oil, and I don't want to use oil unnecessarily. So I'm spooning it and leaving the oil behind. We're going to get this going. It doesn't have to cook long. We just really want to kind of heat it through. It is going to go into the oven after it is mixed with our tofu ricotta mixture. It's going to cook for about 10-15 minutes, so you don't have to cook it long. Just warming it through and making sure that this is well combined, that we don't have like big chunks of spinach by themselves. I'm going to make sure everything is mixed together. Now, something that you're going to have to do with this dish is you're going to have to taste it for salt, okay? We are going to use a nice helping of the Italian seasonings. We're going to use, as I said, some tofu scrambled magic. We are also using some fresh basil, but you are going to need salt, but I'm not going to dictate how much salt you need. I'm going to let you come to that conclusion. And you're going to taste for salt when you are mixing the tofu mixture with these veggies here. All of this basil. I'm just going to roll it. This does not have to be cooked. This can go straight into the bowl. And I'm going to show you what we're going to do in just a minute. Our basil is ready. kind of warmed this through. Okay, so I'm gonna move this to my back area here again. Let's get this out of the way. Just bear with me for a moment. Okay, now we've got our food processor. Now, if you don't have a food processor, you can still make this dish. So it's gonna take you a little more time. Food processor makes breaking down the tofu much easier. So we're using firm tofu. We don't want extra firm because it's too dry. We don't want soft or silken because it's too soft. We want something that's gonna hold up, okay? So this is 1 block. I'm just dropping that right into my food processor. And I'm just gonna dump my Italian seasonings in there. I'm gonna use about a half tablespoon to, well, 1 to 2 tablespoons of the tofu scramble magic. And I have a little water on hand because I want to help this to break down and become. So you're just gonna, to me, probably use about 3 tablespoons worth of water. Just watch it. You just want to make sure that it is breaking down. Now, if you did this by hand, one of the things I love to do with tofu is just get my hands in there. If you're not comfortable with your plain hands, just use some gloves, put it in a bowl, and just allow the tofu to go through your fingers. Okay, you do that and it's going to break it down. It may not be as smooth as it would be with a food processor, but it'll be smooth enough. So now I'm going to transfer this mixture to my bowl. See how creamy that looks? I'm going to add a little bit of my friend's ricotta to it now. Just a little bit. Just to help out a little bit. Now remember I told you I forgot to list lemon juice. So we're going to do, say, about 2 teaspoons worth of lemon juice. I'm going to add to it to give it that tanginess. And here we go. Now we're going to put it all together, taking our good amount of our fresh basil. Putting that in there. Clean up a little bit. We're going to take our spinach, mushroom, and sun-dried tomatoes. Putting that in there. Sauce looks like it's doing well back there. Let's just, you know, you could always do these with the other stuffed shells as well. All right, so now we're just going to mix this all together. Just fold it in. We don't want to put the spinach and the sun-dried tomatoes and mushrooms in the food processor with this because, you know, you still want to have bites of texture in here. So if you put it all in the food processor, it just becomes one big mush, and we don't want that. Okay, see this? It's looking good. And this is the point that you are going to taste it for salt. Okay, so I taste the basil, sun-dried tomato, but it definitely needs salt. But again, start with a little bit and work your way up, okay? Because when you add too much salt, you can't back out of it. I'm going to use one of my favorite seasonings, and it's mushroom salt. It actually has the same effect in terms of taste as MSG, but it is not. It is directly from mushrooms. So I'm going to use a good tablespoon of that there. Okay. So now we are ready for our next step. And that is piping this into the manicotti. So there are two different ways that we can do the manicotti. We can use a Ziploc bag. I would suggest that you start with a smaller Ziploc bag and then refill it as needed, as opposed to using a really big Ziploc bag. I would suggest also cutting a small section, and then if it needs to be bigger, then going and just nipping it a little bit to make it bigger, because you want to be able to have control for this to feed into the manicotti. Okay, so I actually have a pastry bag, and I'm just going to, it's going over my glass here. I'm going to use my spoon, and I'm just going to drop it in my pastry bag. And you're going to see how easy this is to fill. Manicotti. Now, interestingly enough, manicotti really refers to, it's kind of more like a crepe, and cannelloni is more of what this is. But people use it interchangeably, and I understood it to be manicotti, so that's why I'm doing it like this and calling it what I'm calling it. Okay, so I'm getting my dish ready. I'm going to spray it with just a little bit of avocado oil, the base. Now I'm going to put my yummy sauce that's been cooking back here. It smells so good. I'm just going to put it on the base. Manicotti is going to rest on top of this. Okay, spread it around. All right. And now we have the pasta that I parboiled for 5 minutes, and then I rinse it in cold water. Okay, so let me show you how this works. We're going to take this part right here, I'm going to put it inside and squeeze. Now, it's gone in there. This is another reason why it's important to make sure you chop up those sun-dried tomatoes well, so they don't get stuck. So this one is pretty full on that side, and I've gone on the other side too. See that? And I'm just gonna put it right in the dish. And I'm gonna keep repeating this until we are done. This makes quite a bit. You probably could do an entire box with this mixture. Got plenty. A nice weight to them as well. Keep going. Very easy. And it's the same concept if you were to use a Ziploc. And it's okay if it is seeping out a little on the sides. That's fine. Got room for one more. Okay. There we go. And the last thing we're going to do is put a little sauce on top before it goes in the oven. We've got our oven preheated to 375. And this is gonna go in for about 15 to 20 minutes. Just like that. Okay, so let me show you what it looks like prior to going into the oven, and I'll be right back. All right, so this is now 15 to 20 minutes later. The pasta has cooked a little more, but al dente is actually fine. It's something I wanted to share with you all. I don't know if you do this, but al dente pasta is actually better for you. That may seem a little bizarre, but let me tell you why. It's better for you because when pasta is super mushy, your body digests it very quickly and it causes your insulin levels to skyrocket. Okay? When you eat al dente pasta, the breakdown is more gradual. And so there's not the big spikes in blood sugar that you would have if you eat overly cooked pasta. Interesting, right? It is true. So let's go ahead and plate our lovely dish. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put a little sauce on the bottom. From here. Remember, plating is very important. It is just as important as preparing the dish. All right. Placing these right in the center. Some fresh top sauce across the top as well. Now what? I have been looking for there it is. I have been looking for my microblade because I love, one of my favorite things is the Violife Parm. But so I'm going to use some of my chopped basil from earlier. I also use some scallions here. And then we're going to do a generous shave of this non-dairy, non-mucus forming, 100% plant-based Parmesan cheese. Now, folks, I keep telling you it's not complicated. It's not complicated. Here is creamy Habesha Spiced Manicotti. So we've got a beautiful tomato sauce that features crushed tomatoes, tomato paste, Habesha spice, and plant-based half and half. We've got manicotti that is stuffed with tofu. The tofu is seasoned up with a little bit of the afkabe tofu scramble magic. We've got cremini mushrooms in there. We've got spinach in there. We've got sun-dried tomatoes in there. And then we stuff that all into the manicotti, bake it for about 15 to 20 minutes at 375. Put a little bit of sauce in the bottom. Put the pasta manicotti in the center, a little more fresh sauce, and then we put a nice helping of basil, green onions, and Violife Parm. I'm like having to swallow while I'm describing this because I'm anticipating tasting this. Super simple. This is another great dish that you can prepare, folks. You can have your aluminum foil over it. When the people hit the door, pop it in the oven, nice and fresh and delicious. Inexpensive. This entire dish probably cost me $10, and there's a whole lot of pasta left. So this is our dish for this week. Thank you for joining me. We will see you all next week on Reclaiming Your Health. Bye-bye.